Hey, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Paul Cancelleri. I am the chairman of the Veterans Advisory Board. I just want to welcome you today to the rededication of Veterans Field. And for the veterans, happy Veterans Day. Thank you very much for your service. I want to welcome some specific guests. Senator Lewis, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate you coming. Representative Don Wong, thank you. Representative Kate Lipper-Garabedian, thank you very much for coming. From the Town Council, we have Maureen Butt, who's the chairman. Jonathan Chines, thank you very much for joining us today. Ann Dennehy, thank you. Julie Smith-Galvin, thank you very much. It's good to see you. And members of the school committee, if you're here, our town chief of police, our fire department, thank you very much for supporting the event. I also want to welcome Bob Vincent. Okay, we don't have a speaker next to us, so I'm going to shout a little bit. Bob Vincent, thank you very much for coming. Bob Vincent, just so you know, is a veteran, served in the United States Navy. He's retired commander. He served as a JAG officer. He was a judge in the United States Navy. We're very, very fortunate to have him. The theme for Veterans Day for the town of Wakefield today is honor. This morning we're gathered to officially dedicate Veterans Field. This has taken the town about 80 years. The field was identified by the town of Wakefield in 1943. However, there was never a sign and never a record of formal dedication. Thanks to the generosity of Wakefield resident Lois Benjamin, today we are able to formally recognize and dedicate Veterans Field. Bob Sardella designed and created the sign that you will see today, which was erected by members of the Wakefield Department of Public Works under the supervision of Dennis Fazio. I also want to thank Bob and Dennis for putting the work that they do to put the banners up along Main Street for Veterans Day. Thank you very much. To formally open the ceremony, I'm going to ask that the Girl Scouts from Troop 62842 come on up. Come on up here, girls, to the microphone. And the Girl Scouts are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And if we could all face the flag, put our hand over our heart, remove your hats, and we'll just recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? You're leading us. Ready? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This morning I'm going to call upon Rabbi Greg Hirsch from the Temple Emmanuel to lead us in prayer. Just kind of remember those veterans and soldiers and service members and their families that are not able to be with us in your prayers. Rabbi Greg, come on up.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for your service. In the Jewish daily morning prayers, twice we say, Uvetuvo mechadesh bechol yom tamid. And in God's goodness, God is perpetually renewing the act of creation. Creation didn't happen as an isolated event some thousands or billions of years ago. It's ongoing. The earth is ever-changing, ever-evolving to meet the needs of those who dwell on it. Several centuries ago, Europeans arrived on America's shores and began to reshape these lands. In 1812, at the height of our Second War against England, the town of Wakefield was founded. Over the next 131 years, generations of Wakefield citizens served in the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, the First World War, and other wars, protecting this land and our values with their courage and valor. In 1943, at the height of World War II, this plot of land was identified as Veterans Field. With droves of Wakefield's men going overseas to fight, the Wakefield town leadership knew that they needed to honor the brave sacrifices of our veterans. The war raged on, and we ultimately defeated the fascists, and we continue to celebrate that victory. Today, we're all here to honor all of Wakefield's veterans from the past 210 years who so selflessly gave their hearts and lives to defend our country and our freedoms. This beautiful parcel of land is just a small part of Wakefield. Wakefield is just a small part of Massachusetts. Massachusetts is just a small part of America, and America is just one country on God's beautiful, life-giving earth. But this little piece of land, I'd say, represents the beauty of our country and what our military fights to protect. Look around. This gorgeous view of Lake Quinnipiac, where children play, where friends and families walk and talk and bond, and where Wakefield citizens can relax and enjoy the beautiful scenery. It's a special place, and God's presence can be felt here. Whenever we see children laughing and playing, that's an image of God. When we see strangers making friends with one another, that's another image of God. God is constantly renewing the act of creation, enhancing the beauty and glow of every blade of grass in this field and all of us who walk on it. With all the memories of Wakefield's brave veterans in our hearts, today we dedicate this field to the courage and selflessness of our veterans, the people who protected our way of life. May Veterans Field always remain a place of comfort and joy, a place of honor and patriotism, a place where God's presence is felt.
Thank you. Well done. Rabbi Greg, thank you very much. And just to let you know, for 75 years, Temple Emmanuel has also been serving the community and the Jewish community here in Wakefield, and I appreciate their services. Thank you very much. We're fortunate to have some terrific residents in the town of Wakefield, and we have a great town council. Our speaker this morning is one of those town council members, and I just want to introduce Robert Vincent. As I mentioned, he's a retired commissioned naval officer who served as a Judge Advocate General in the Judge Advocate General Corps, or JAG, for 26 years. His assignments include, I only know of two of them. He was over in Europe and he was down in Washington, D.C. As an appellate judge. On town council, he also serves as a liaison for the fire department, for our housing authority, and also for the bylaw review committee, and of course the Veterans Advisory Board. It is my privilege to introduce Robert Vincent.
It is indeed an honor and a privilege to address you on Veterans Day, especially as we gather this morning to dedicate the new Veterans Field sign and Veterans Field, which was built in the mid-1930s and officially named Veterans Field at the March 1943 Wakefield Town Meeting. I want to extend my personal welcome to all active duty service members, veterans, and Gold Star families in attendance today. For the past 35 years, 26 while on active duty, and 9 since I retired from the Navy, fellow American citizens have thanked me for my military service. Like all veterans, I am appreciative whenever somebody personally thanks me for serving our great nation. Sometimes we are fortunate enough to come across exceptional individuals who have decided that words of appreciation are simply not enough, and are determined to permanently memorialize their gratitude to service members and veterans. Wakefield is indeed blessed to have an abundance of such people throughout history, notably Cyrus Wakefield, who shortly after the Civil War financed a town hall, which included the Soldiers Memorial Hall, the original Soldiers Memorial Hall tablets to continue to be proudly and prominently displayed in our current town hall. Harriet Newell Flint, who bequeathed the funds to erect the 1902 Soldiers and Sailors Memorial, and hundreds of Wakefield residents spanning from the late 1800s to the present day, who provided funding and labor for many of the war memorials and other tributes to service members and veterans, such as the Floral Way, that are located throughout our wonderful town. Today, we are blessed to be in the presence of Lois Benjamin, one of Wakefield's finest citizens, who joins these historical figures by donating the Veterans Field sign, which will be unveiled in a few moments, to her hometown. Lois was not just motivated to honor her dear friend Frank Adams, a Coast Guard veteran, her father Joe, a Navy veteran, and her husband Dan, an Army veteran. She wanted to publicly and permanently honor all Wakefield residents who have served our nation. Lois, on behalf of the Town Council, service members, veterans, and all Wakefield residents, I sincerely thank you for the heartfelt and generous gift that you have given to us. We will cherish it, and we promise to safeguard it every day. Thank you.
Yeah, afterwards. I'll cue you. Just one change. The commander, Tom Collins, is not able to join us today, so we're going to forego the 21-gun salute. However, we're going to proceed with the ceremony, and I'm going to just introduce. We're fortunate to have Lois and Dan Benjamin here. And I'd like to introduce, if Lois and Dan could come up here to the mic together. And as she's making her way to the microphone here, Lois Benjamin, I just want to say, has faithfully volunteered in our community for several decades. She serves on a couple commissions, such as the Commission on Disabilities and the Traffic Advisory Commission, to name just a few of the committees that she serves on. She's also an active citizen, and she inspires many to consider the needs of others. Please welcome Daniel and Lois Benjamin. Say a few words.
Thank you.
Come on up, right up to the mic.
I am so proud to be here. As soon as Dan, my husband, decided when he read the article about how many years we did not have any, what's the word I want?
Dedication of Veterans
Dedication of Veterans Field. I said, that's it. That's what we're going to do.
She wanted to do something, and she grew up right above the hill here on Parker Road and Front Street, and this was her playground here. So she is more than, and even I'm broken up by it, but we're happy to be able to do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. At this particular time, Lois and Dan, we're going to have the actual official unveiling of the sign. Okay, over here. So I'm going to ask the audience here, if you can, hold on a minute. Unveil the sign. Unveil the sign. We gotta yell it out. Okay. Unveil the sign. 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 Yeah. Wow. Take a look at it.
Wow. Beautiful sign. Good job. Good job.
As it said, it's dedicated to all veterans. 80 years, long overdue. Wow. There's a lot of people looking down at us today right now, saying thank you for remembering us.
Beautiful job. So you stay right here. Hold on a second there, Mr. Veteran Service Officer. If I could have the Girl Scouts come on up, and you have a wreath to place.
We do.
Okay. If the girls would grab the wreath Jen?
The one that's
This
on
one.
the bottom, yeah.
No matter, both of them are coming up.
Yeah, both of them are coming up.
I'm gonna put that one right here, girls. Okay?
So we have 2 wreaths this morning to place at the new sign dedicating Veterans Field. Daniel and Lois and the Girl Scouts are presenting the wreaths, and these wreaths serve as a reminder to us as we honor the many Wakefield residents who have answered the call to military service. Do you want to stand up in the front with the girls and the wreaths, in between the wreaths? Just right in the middle. If we could just get a picture of that, that would be great. Thank you. Very good. Thank you very much. Dan? David, come on up, and now you're on up with the flowers. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to officially thank you for coming today and welcome you to what's now known as Veterans Field. We now know where it is. Lois, thank you very much for everything you've done for our town. You guys can just stay right there. I want to just say, while memorials and monuments provide a place for us for reflection, Veterans Field is a little bit different. Veterans Field provides us all a place to enjoy our life. The field serves for all of us in the community, as a place to play softball, pickleball, tennis, and a location where we can enjoy our fireworks on a warm summer's evening. And my final request is for our honored guests and members of our town council to gather around the new sign for a photo with Lois Benjamin. And the photo marks the moment, 80 years in the making, to formally name this field Veterans Field. If everybody can join us for a big photo, that would be good. And I just want to say thank you very much for joining us this morning. And please don't forget to join us over at the Galvin Middle School at 11 o'clock while we enjoy the annual 2022 Veterans Day program that starts in the auditorium. And our guest speaker is Thomas J. Hudner III, the son of Captain Thomas J. Hudner, Jr., United States Navy, who received the Medal of Honor for attempting to rescue Jesse Brown during the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir in Korea in 1950. Thank you very much for coming. If we could have our honored guests come on up and have a group photo, I would appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining the celebration today. We also have some soldiers from the Massachusetts National Guard, and we also have some recruiters that are here from the Massachusetts National Guard that will be happy to talk to you after the ceremony if you have any questions for those that are currently serving. A special welcome also goes to Rabbi Greg Hirsch from Temple Emmanuel. Temple Emmanuel in our Jewish community is celebrating their 75th year of service to our town in Wakefield. Thank you, Rabbi, for coming. I want to welcome the performers of the award-winning Memorial High School Wind Ensemble and the Treble Choir and the Chamber Singers. These are truly gifted individuals that are here today with us. I also want to welcome the Boy Scouts from Troop 701 and, of course, the Girl Scouts from Troop 62842. I also want to welcome the members of the American Legion Post 63 and, of course, the members of the Veterans Advisory Board that are here today with us. And A special welcome to members of the Military Order of World Wars and the Greater Boston Chapter, and also to those that are here that are members of the Military Officers Association of America. Thank you very much for coming today. I want to welcome our first responders, Chief Scardy and Chief Sullivan of the Chief Sullivan from the Wakefield Fire Department, and our police chief, Chief Scorin. And good morning, Mr. Douglas Lyons, if he's here, superintendent of our schools, who represents some fantastic teachers and administrators here in Wakefield. And of course, I would like to also welcome Mr. Thomas J. Hudner III for carving out time in your busy schedule to come here as our guest speaker. Earlier this morning, the town of Wakefield rededicated Veterans Field, and that dedication took us 80 years to post a sign marking Veterans Field. This is not a memorial or a monument promoting reflection, but rather it is a slice of real estate from the town where we can play ball, pickleball, softball, there's tennis courts. It's dedicated for all of us to enjoy our lives here in town. And I want to just specially thank Lois Benjamin for seeing to it with her generosity that project coming through. Lois, thank you very much for doing that. And a round of applause for Lois. Today's theme is honor, and our nation has the Medal of Honor. The Medal of Honor is the United States Armed Forces' highest military decoration that recognizes soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, guardians, and Coast Guardsmen who have distinguished themselves by acts of valor. The term valor signifies strength of mind and spirit that enables courage and fortitude. I ask that you please rise and remain standing as we open this morning's ceremony as the Scouts from Troop 701 Color Guard will post the colors. Order, arms. Sam Stella from the American Legion, Post 63 in Wakefield, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the National Anthem, which will be performed by the Wakefield Memorial High School award-winning treble choir and chamber singers under the direction of Miss Anna Morell.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, in liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled
Color guard, you can take your post. Thank you, Ms. Morell, and the award-winning treble choir singers and chamber singers. Please remain standing as Rabbi Gregory Hirsch from the Temple Emmanuel leads our invocation. Temple Emmanuel is celebrating their 75th anniversary, and I just want to make mention at the entrance to the temple is a small monument remembering the 4 chaplains aboard the USAT Dorchester. These 4 chaplains gave their life jackets so other sailors could be saved to continue to fight at the end of World War II. The Dorchester was sunk in February of 1943 by a torpedo strike. This morning in my prayers, I'm going to remember 4 chaplains: Father John P. Washington, who was a Catholic priest; Rabbi Alexander D. Good, there's a Methodist minister, George L. Fox, and Clark V. Poling, a minister of the American Reformed Church.
Thank you, Paul, for honoring the 4 chaplains memorial and the selfless giving of so many Americans. Thank you all for your presence this morning. God of compassion, source of mercy, we pay tribute to those who have served our country and express our gratitude for their courage and selflessness, both those among us today and those of generations past. This nation, built by those born of this soil and those who have come here from all corners of the earth, is on a continual journey toward its destiny. May we never let down those who have served in defense of this country. May we uphold the values of freedom and of the inherent dignity of every human being. May we each learn from the labors and sacrifices of these veterans, understanding their great courage and selflessness as something to which we can all aspire. May we lead the world by example and become, in the words of Prophet Isaiah, a light to the nations.
Thank you, Rabbi Hirsch. Please be seated. Since its first official observance as Armistice Day on November 11, 1918, in recognition of the armistice that ended World War I, Americans have paused to remember the service and sacrifice of men and women who have defended the American way of life in times of war and peace. Just 5 years following the end of World War II, in 1945, America entered the Korean conflict in 1950 to defend the Republic of Korea from being attacked from the Chinese army. In Incheon, Korea, a local resident, Private First Class Walter C. Monaghan, Jr. from the United States Marine Corps, was fighting for his life alongside the members of his platoon and his company. Monaghan's initiative managed to stop and destroy 6 tanks, protecting his unit. Walter Monaghan continued to receive enemy fire and was killed in action in September of 1950. For his selfless service, he received the Medal of Honor posthumously for destroying 6 enemy tanks and saving the lives of fellow Marines in Company F as a part of the 1st Marine Division. There's a plaque in Town Hall that serves as a reminder for all of us that our freedom must be defended. His plaque is there in Town Hall as you enter. You may want to just remember that and take a look. President Harry Truman once said, our debt to the heroic men and women in the service of our country can never be repaid. They have earned our undying gratitude. America will never forget the sacrifice. In the northern part of Korea in 1950, another fight was underway in an area called the Chosin Reservoir. The 1st Marines with the 10th Army were engaged in a fierce fight against the Chinese Army. The Chinese Army launched a ground offensive with an estimated strength of about 120,000 soldiers attacking the United Nations coalition of about 30,000 soldiers. The casualties were high, and nearly 5,000 American troops were listed as captured or missing in action. 13 would receive the Medal of Honor for action in the chosen reservoir. General MacArthur, five-star general, would ask President Truman to deploy more troops and more powerful weapons to stop the Chinese army. President Truman requested MacArthur's resignation based on that request. Lieutenant Junior Grade Thomas J. Hudner, Jr. would be one of the first to receive the Medal of Honor, attempting to rescue Ensign Jesse Brown. These were the conditions that our armed forces were confronted with during the Korean War in 1950. President Ronald Reagan once said this about freedom: "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We did not pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day, we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States, where men and women were free." This morning, I'm going to take a moment to welcome our Town Council Chair, Maureen Butt. She offers her greetings to our veterans on behalf of the town of Wakefield. Ladies and gentlemen, Councilor Maureen Butt.
Good morning, everyone. As chair of the Wakefield Town Council, I welcome you all here today. I would also like to recognize Town Administrator Steve Mayo, my colleagues Jonathan Chines, and Navy veteran Bob Vincent, and State Rep Kate Lipper-Garabedian. Thank you to all from the schools and DPW, Public Safety, and the Veterans Advisory Board who assisted in putting this event together today. Today, we recognize all those among us who have been a part of the great brotherhood and sisterhood we call the U.S. military, our veterans, active duty service members, guardsmen, and reservists. Your service and sacrifice have kept our country safe and free. I also want to thank and publicly recognize the veterans in my life. Thank you to Sarah Mitch, who went to college with Counselor Chines and I, and served for 14 years as occupational therapist in the military. And thank you to my cousin, Judge Zahid Qureshi. In 2003, Zahid joined the U.S. Army Judge Advocate General's Court, attaining the rank of captain before being honorably discharged in 2007. During his time, Zahid was stationed in Germany and deployed twice to Iraq in support of the Iraq War, both in 2004 and 2006. And in 2021, Zahid became a U.S. District Judge of the United States District Court for the District of New Jersey. He is the first American Muslim judge in the United States. I also want to thank my friends in Wakefield who have served, or our veterans, including Tina Encarnacio, Mark Young, Dan Benjamin, Jeff Kehoe, Jim Scott, and Jackie Milliner, and Town Assessor Victor Santinelli. Thank you to all those that I didn't have a chance to mention. Thank you for all that you do, especially for our town of Wakefield. Last month, I was honored to join and at the send-off ceremony honoring Massachusetts National Guard, the nation's first 272nd chemical company. It was a beautiful day, one where I was reminded of the sacrifice of so many who serve and the families who sacrifice. Those in the National Guard answer the call of service and community. We were told about the Massachusetts service members who drove buses this year when we needed help and helped the migrants who came to the Cape. Serving the community is such a part of veteran services. Today, I say thank you to all the veterans who serve your communities and families. Thank you for honorably serving your nation. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Councilor Butt, and I just want to personally thank you for your wisdom, your advice on some of the communication that we've had to get to this particular point today. She's good stuff, and I'm glad to have her on the Town Council. Thank you very much. I'd also like to personally thank, as she did, Town Administrator, Mr. Steve Mayo and Sherry Dalton for the work that you do for our Town Council and our residents. With your support, The town has a complete set of service flags that are off to the other side of the stage. These service flags remind us of the men and women that are serving in the armed forces of the United States of America. These flags are available to our schools, to our libraries, to public safety buildings and departments of public works to use for any civic ceremony that you may present. They're on display every day in the lower conference room of the William J. Lee, Lieutenant Commander, United States Navy, Memorial Town Hall. Thank you very much. Steve Mayo, where are you? Thank you. Good job. No Veterans Day ceremony can go without a proclamation from our state governor. I call to the podium Michael Owen from the Veterans Advisory Board to read the proclamation from Governor Baker to our veterans. And will our veterans who are able, please rise as Michael reads the proclamation. Michael?
A proclamation. Whereas since the Commonwealth's colonial days, thousands of men and women have served our country in defense of freedom and liberty. And whereas on November 11th, 1918, armistice was signed in the forest of Campaign by the Allied nations and Germany, ending World War I, the war to end all wars, after 4 years of conflict. And whereas since that day, every November, people from around the nation have gathered to honor our veterans. And whereas there are approximately 388,000 veterans living in Massachusetts. And whereas today we are reminded of the great sacrifices and contributions our veterans have made to our country. And whereas we honor and salute those who have served our country throughout generations with honor, patriotism, and courage. And whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts citizens remember the bravery of those who have served their country, so that their dedication and sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. And whereas in November 2022, the world will commemorate the 104th anniversary of the armistice that ended the fighting in World War I at 11 a.m., November 11, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Now, therefore I, Charles D. Baker, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim November 11, 2022 to be Veterans Day, and urge all the citizens of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance.
Can you take that with you? Thank you, Michael. The town of Wakefield is fortunate to have a very active veteran service officer. David Mangan is our veteran service officer, and this morning he will present the Republic of Korea Ambassador of Peace Medal to Corporal Paul Fazina, who served as a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne as a veteran of both World War II and Korea. Paul is an active member of the Wakefield community, devoting much of his time supporting the Council of Clubs. Corporal Fazina, we honor and thank you for taking the time to join us at this morning's ceremony. Please stand. So the Korean Medal is awarded for participating in any engagement against the enemy in the territory, waters, or the air in North or South Korea. It was authorized on November 8, 1950, for members of the United States Armed Forces to serve for their service in Korea. 30 consecutive or 60 non-consecutive days between June 27, 1950 and July 27, 1954. Thank you very much, Paul. Each year, the American Legion reads John McCrae's poem, In Flanders Field. The poppy is a flower that has become a national symbol of reflection for two veterans after World War I. The poppy is a weed that grows in the fields. It is also known to be the first flower to bloom upon the graves of the fallen. This morning, please welcome Mr. Bowling as he reads In Flanders Field.
Thank you, Paul. To start off with, I'd like to give you a little background on the poem Flanders Fields. I'm sure that most of you people have heard it a million times. The poem itself was written by a Major John McCrae, who happened to be a physician serving in the Canadian Armed Forces during World War I. He was not only the physician, surgeon for the battalion, but he was also second in command through his rank. Colonel McCrae was assigned to the 1st Canadian Field Artillery Battalion during the Second Battle of Ypres, which took place in Flanders, which most of you know is part of Belgium nowadays. He also had a friend, a very close friend, young lieutenant, that was serving with him, and he was killed in the artillery barrage back in the 15th of July in 1915. The major was so moved because of this, he was driven to write this poem, which was written the same day that he had to officiate at the burial of his best friend. This poem is written from the perspective of the dead, speaking to the living and passing on their information. It's called In Flanders Fields, the Poppies Blow, between the crosses, row on row that mark our place. And in the sky, the lark, still gaily singing, flies, scarce heard among the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunsets glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye lose faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So this morning it is my honor to introduce our guest speaker, Thomas J. Hudner III. Tom is the son of Captain Thomas J. Hudner, Jr. From the United States Navy and the recipient of the Medal of Honor for the attempted rescue of Navy pilot Jesse Brown in December of 1950. The Medal of Honor that he received is here with us today. Tom Hudner III was born in Bethesda, Maryland, at the Bethesda Naval Hospital in Maryland, now called the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. While his father was still on active duty with the Navy and assigned to the Pentagon. Then back in 1973, his father retired from the Navy, and the family moved from Alexandria, Virginia to Concord, Massachusetts. Tom grew up in Concord. He went to school there, then attended Connecticut College, where he captained the varsity lacrosse and the varsity soccer teams, and after graduation, he lived in Hawaii, then in California. In 2001, Tom moved back to his hometown of Concord, along with his native Californian fiancée, and began to work in fundraising at the Middlesex School, an independent high school. Since that time, Tom has worked in nonprofit fundraising and beginning in 2015 has served as a Chief Development Officer at Boston MedFlight, which is a nonprofit healthcare organization headquartered at Hanscom Field in Bedford that provides critical care to medical transport to the region's sickest patients with its fleet of helicopters, airplanes, and ground ambulances. Tom lives in Concord with his wife and their 3 children, where he is an active coach of youth sports and a volunteer in town. Tom and his dad took time to share this epic story of heroism and friendship and sacrifice. He spent time working with author Adam Makos, film director J.D. Dillard, actors Jonathan Majors, portraying Ensign Jesse Brown, and Glenn Powell, portraying Lieutenant J.G. Thomas J. Hudner, Jr. It just so happens that the director, J.D. Dillard, is also the son of a former Navy fighter pilot who flew with the Blue Angels. Today we have a digital message from the commander and the crew of the USS Thomas Hudner about the story of Jesse Brown. Commander Shelby Nicotin, United States Navy, is a native of Wakefield. She currently commands the USS Thomas Hudner. Please direct your attention to the screen to enjoy this short clip from the commander and the crew of the USS Thomas Hudner sharing the story of Jesse Brown.
Good morning, everyone. Devotion tells the incredible true story of Lieutenant J.G. Thomas Hudner and Ensign Jesse Brown. In an era of racial segregation, they formed a kinship based off of character rather than the color of their skin. It's an awe-inspiring story of brothers above all others.
On December 4th, 1950, during the Korean War, Ensign Jesse Brown, the United States Navy's first black naval aviator, flew off the deck of the USS Leyte with his wingman, Lieutenant Junior Grade Thomas Hudner. Their mission was to provide reconnaissance effort in support of the Marines during the Battle of Chosin.
During the flight, Jesse Brown's plane was struck by enemy anti-aircraft fire, forcing him to crash land his plane in a clearing in a heavily wooded mountainside.
Despite the danger, Thomas Hudner executed a wheels-up landing with his own aircraft, risking his own life to provide aid.
Miraculously, Thomas Hudner landed on the snow-covered mountains less than 50 yards from the wreckage of Jesse Brown's plane.
Following his landing, Thomas Hudner struggled through deep snow and through the pain of fractured vertebrae to reach his friend and wingman.
When he reached Jesse Brown, he was relieved to find him alive, but he was pinned in the cockpit.
In sub-zero temperatures, Thomas Hudner worked for hours to free his friend from the burning wreckage.
Without the right tools, Thomas Hudner began packing snow on the flames to prevent spreading.
He then radioed his squadron leader to summon a helicopter with an axe and fire extinguisher.
Once he arrived, Marine Lieutenant Charles Ward and Thomas Hudner took turns trying to free Jesse Brown from the wreckage.
Despite their efforts, they were unable to free Jesse Brown, and he would succumb to his injuries.
In his final moments, Jesse Brown gave Thomas Hudner one final message to take home to his wife. Tell Daisy how much I love her.
As night closed in, Thomas Hudner and Charles Ward reluctantly boarded the rescue helicopter, leaving the wreckage on that frozen mountainside.
A few days later, a funeral flight would launch from the deck of USS Leyte as the Fighting 32 went back to bomb the wreckage, saving Ensign Jesse Brown's body from being captured by the enemy.
For his heroic act and selfless devotion to a fellow shipmate, President Harry S. Truman bestowed the Medal of Honor upon Lieutenant Junior Grade Thomas J. Hudner, Jr. on April 13, 1951.
After receiving recognition for his heroism, Thomas Hudner remained on active duty, completing 27 years of honorable naval service, promoting to the rank of captain.
Today, the mighty warship USS Thomas Hudner, DDG 116, proudly bears the name and the motto of putting shipmates above all others.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a round of applause to welcome Thomas J. Hudner III as our guest speaker this morning.
That is a tough act to follow. You have to brace myself a little bit. That's a lot to take in, and truly appreciated by the crew. Thank you, everyone, and thank you to Paul Cancelleri for the kind invitation to speak today. And thank you to the incredible singers from Wakefield Memorial High School. That was a truly inspirational performance. I'm honored to be with you this morning here in Wakefield, which has such a rich history of service to our country and holds Veterans Day and indeed veterans in such high regard. Now, I'm not embarrassed to say that I was the second choice to be today's speaker, the alternate who was tapped when Commander Shelby Nikitin was not available. As noted, Commander Nikitin is a Wakefield native, and she is the commanding officer of the USS Thomas Hudner, the 510-foot U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer named in honor of my late father. Of course, Commander Nikitin's reason for missing this event is quite valid, for she and her crew are in the midst of preparing for deployment, soon to depart their home port in Mayport, Florida, to be part of the carrier strike group with the USS Gerald Ford, the Navy's newest aircraft carrier. Commander Nikitin, as we speak, is serving as a shining example of honor and service. I was fortunate to meet her this spring before she took command of the Hudner, and I reached out to her in advance of today's event and asked if I might share her thoughts on the day. In response, she wrote this, quote, "I'm sorry I could not be there in person with all of you, but I'm there in spirit. USS Thomas Hudner, DDG-116, is currently deployed with the Gerald Ford Strike Group. I've been blessed with a beautiful ship, a brilliant crew, and an incredible namesake, Thomas Hudner. His selfless devotion to honor and friendship empowers all of us on board to not only take care of the mission, but to take care of each other. Much like the ship, I am thankful for the extraordinary crew I grew up with, my family and my community. Wakefield will always be a loving, patriotic, small town with families dedicated to the well-being of others. It is people like all of you that make people like me proud to serve. Happy Veterans Day, signed Shelby." And as you know, she is awesome. I appreciate her sharing those remarks. So I'm not sure that I'm the most qualified person to speak about honor, but I suppose that I've had a lens into the concept by having observed my late father's example. As was shared earlier, my father's Medal of Honor action involved his valiant attempt to save his downed wingman, Ensign Jesse Brown, who had been shot down at the area of the Chosin Reservoir in North Korea during a mission in support of U.S. Marines on the ground who were surrounded by Chinese and North Korean soldiers. Jesse Brown was the nation's first black naval aviator and a hero in his own right who had overcome incredible adversity to earn his Navy wings. However, neither the extreme danger a rescue attempt represented nor the color of Jesse's skin were factors in Dad's decision to crash land to try to save Jesse. Jesse was a friend and a squadron mate who needed help, so Dad went in. While many of us would say that that was an extraordinary act, my father never thought of himself or that action as extraordinary. To the contrary, when he was asked through the years why he did it, he responded simply that it was the right thing to do, and if he hadn't done it, someone else would have. The ship's commanding officer, Captain Thomas Sisson, did feel that it was an extraordinary act, and when he recommended my father for the Medal of Honor, Captain Sisson wrote, quote, "There's been no finer act of unselfish heroism in military history," end quote. Now, my father was a very humble and understated man, and he would never prescribe to such a statement. He knew, as we all know, that throughout military history there have been countless incredible acts of unselfish heroism. In fact, the history of the United States has been built upon these acts, many of which went unseen and without recognition. Regarding honor, the theme of today's program, it is true that the Medal of Honor could be construed as proof that Dad was indeed an honorable man, which in fact he was. However, he was not honorable because of one heroic action. Excuse me. He was honorable because of the way in which he carried himself every day and the way he put others before himself. He was kind, thoughtful, and respectful, and he was always more interested in learning about others than he was in talking about his own achievements. For Dad, the Medal of Honor was never about him. It was about his fellow servicemen and women. It was about Jesse Brown, the men and women like him who have served our country selflessly, and the many who have made the ultimate sacrifice. My father never pressured me to go into the military. At the time, I knew it would not have been the right fit for me then, though I now look back and wish that I had more actively explored the possibility. His military service, and particularly the Medal of Honor, represents an almost impossibly high standard to aspire to. To my dad's credit, he never even hinted that this was the standard by which he judged me, and instead, he encouraged me to find my own path and to follow my own interests. And while I did not choose to serve in the military, I often think about how I can serve in other ways and in other settings. For me, I'm certainly inspired to work at my company, Boston MedFlight, and to support its nonprofit mission to care for the sickest patients in our communities and to provide life-saving care that they require for survival or recovery. And while I am not a pilot, or a flight nurse, or paramedic saving lives in the back of a helicopter, and believe me, I would be so much cooler if I was, I am indeed inspired by the work that they do every day. These colleagues are genuine heroes, and many of them are veterans, by the way, and I am proud to work alongside them. I should say just a few words about the movie Devotion, the film coming out in theaters in less than 2 weeks that tells the story of my father and Jesse Brown and their service as squadron mates during the Korean War. If my father was alive, he would find the whole thing a bit surreal and shake his head at all the fuss and attention. However, one thing he would certainly applaud is the fact that the movie will introduce the story of Jesse Brown to a wider audience, and through the film, many more people will learn of Jesse's perseverance, his skill, and his selfless service to our country and his family. Not all of us will serve in the same manner as the distinguished military veterans we honor today, but we can aspire to emulate the admirable characteristics that they represent. If a neighbor is in need, we can help them. If a classmate is being bullied, we can stand up for them and be their ally. If a family member is struggling, we can be their support to pull them up. We all have the capacity to be honorable, and we have the capacity to be selfless. I hope that today and every day we can be inspired by the veterans here with us this morning and all the men and women who have served and are serving. Thank you.
So we got a couple things going on here. Tom, first of all, thank you for taking your time off on your day off. I've given you a title in our correspondence. You're an ambassador of honor, telling the story of your father's devotion to Jesse Brown and the close air support missions, supporting the troops that were engaged in combat on the ground. I want to thank you very much for sharing your perspectives about the challenges of growing up as the son of a naval aviator. At this particular time, I'd like to call Senator Jason Lewis forward. Okay, we have something here for you. We've got a couple things for you today, okay? But Senator Lewis, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be with you on this very important day as we express our respect, our admiration, and our deepest gratitude to our active duty service members, our veterans, and their family members. Thank you, Tom, for being with us today. Thank you for sharing the inspiring story of your father. I can't wait to see the movie in 2 weeks. And thank you for the service and sacrifice of your family for our nation. It's my privilege, on behalf of the Wakefield Legislative Delegation, Representative Lippig-Arabedian, Representative Wong, and myself, to present a special citation from the legislature to recognize you and your late father and your family. It says, Commonwealth of Massachusetts official citation. Be it known that the Massachusetts House and Senate hereby extends its congratulations to Thomas J. Hudner III in recognition of his willingness to be an ambassador of honor. Again, that's the, as Paul said, the term that he has honored you with. Ambassador of honor in telling his late father's story of kinship rooted in character that transcends race. Thank you again. And it's really a pleasure and a privilege to meet you and to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Marine Bud, come on up. So we have some things from the town of Wakefield also to give you, okay? All right. I'm going to give those to you. You can read them both. Okay. So let me explain what's going to happen here. Marine Bud is going to present an American flag that was flown over the William J. Lee Memorial Town Hall to Thomas J. Hudner. The town of Wakefield will also send a flag that was flown over the town hall to the USS Thomas Hudner for Commander Shelby Nickerton and their crew.
So I'm gonna read this. The flag of the United States of America. This is to certify that the accompanying flag was flown over Wakefield Town Hall on November 2nd, 2022. This flag was flown in honor of CDR Shelley M. Nickerton, United States Navy. And I signed it as town council chair, and we will get that delivered to her. The flag of the United States of America. This is to certify that the accompanying flag was flown over Wakefield Town Hall on November 1st, 2022. This flag was flown in honor of Thomas J. Hudner III, signed by me as Wakefield Town Council Chair. Oh, this isn't.
I have one more thing to give Tom. He's got a job as the Ambassador of Honor. He's the son of a military officer, served in the Navy. Not all of our children serve in the military, but they have a job to support the veterans and those of us that did serve. Tom's done a very good job at kind of setting the example for other children, military families who do not choose to serve. One of my jobs that I do in my spare time is I'm a docent up in Hamilton for the Patton Family Homestead. The grandchildren of General Patton did not join the military, but they are serving in other ways to help veterans and their families. And I have a coin that represents the father and the son from General Patton that I want to present, and I want you to keep that. So we have a little bit of a transition here. I'm going to introduce the award-winning Wakefield Memorial High School Wind Ensemble under the direction of Mr. Thomas Bankert. They're going to perform The Armed Forces Pride of America by Larry Clark and Greg Gilpin. As we hear their performance, veterans, please rise to celebrate your song and your anthem. If you are a Space Force guardian, rise when the Air Force anthem is being played. Do we have any Space Force guardians in the audience? Okay. Not yet. United States Navy. I'm sorry, United States Marine Corps. United States Navy. Navy. Coast Guard. United States Air Force. Thank you. Thank you to the award-winning Wind Ensemble performance, and Mr. Benkert, thank you for your continued support for our ceremonies through the years. I'm going to call the Girl Scout Troop 62842 forward to place the wreath in front of the podium. At this moment, I invite you to please rise and join us in a moment of silence as we present the Veterans Day wreath in remembrance of our fallen veterans, which will be followed by the playing of taps by Caroline Dill and Lila Hathaway. Please take your seats. Thank you, Caroline Dill and Lila Hathaway for that song. I'd like to call on Rabbi Greg Hirsch to lead us in our closing prayer.
God of compassion, God of dignity and strength, watch over the veterans of the United States in recognition of their loyal service to our nation. Bless them with wholeness and love. Shelter them, heal their wounds, comfort their hearts, grant them peace. God of justice and truth, rock of our lives, bless our veterans, these men and women of courage and valor, with a deep and abiding understanding of our profound gratitude. Protect them and their families from loneliness and want. Grant them lives of joy and bounty. May their dedication and honor be remembered as a blessing from generation to generation. Blessed are you, God, protector and redeemer, our shield and our stronghold.
Thank you, Rabbi Greg, and thank you for being with us today. Color Guard, prepare to retire the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as we retire the colors. Please be seated. Just a final thought about military service. I'd like to acknowledge our non-commissioned officers. The value that these men and women contribute to the armed forces is amazing. These are the sergeants, the technical sergeants, the chief petty officers, the master gunners, the master sergeants, and of course the sergeants majors. It is the non-commissioned officer that trains and recruits at basic training, and it is also the non-commissioned officer that trains our cadets and midshipmen to become commissioned officers. To our veterans who are non-commissioned officers that are here today, I want to just personally thank you very much for what you've done. Many also ask, what can I do for our veterans in our military? So here's one thing that you can do. Take a moment to speak today with Staff Sergeant Andreas Perdermo or Staff Sergeant Hanley. They're here today to answer your questions from the Massachusetts Army National Guard and talk about the military as a career opportunity. They'll be in the hall and they'll be available at the collation inside the cafeteria. And also, please feel free to say hello and approach him with any questions that you may have about military service. Whether you're thinking about joining the military or you're a concerned parent of a son or daughter who may be thinking about joining the military. Another action that you can do, you can join our veterans' monthly coffees. The veterans will meet tomorrow, Saturday, at the Quannapowitt Yacht Club at 10 o'clock in the morning. These are informative sessions for veterans and members of our community. Tomorrow's topics are the newly passed PACT Act and Chapter 115 benefits. These pertain to all those that have served in the United States military. I also want to personally thank Thomas Hudner for his inspiring message. Thank you to all our veterans and their families for their service. Senator Lewis, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And thank you, Representative Kate Lippert-Garabedian, for joining our program today. And I also want to thank Norman Abbott, and I want you to take a message back to Congressman Seth Moulton and wish him a happy Veterans Day from the town of Wakefield. The closing song today is We Are the Voice. It was composed by Stan Spotswood, and it's performed by the award-winning Wakefield Memorial High School Treble Choir and the Chamber Singers, and it's also led by Miss Morell. Joe Benaniti is on the piano this morning, and we'd like to welcome you to join us in the cafeteria following this song for a collation. And we also like to thank Lori from Lori 909 and her support for providing the food and the beverages that are available in the cafeteria for everybody. Miss Morell.
We are the hope of the future, rising from the earth. We are the seed of tomorrow, singing of new birth. We are the hope of a nation, longing to be free from the bondage of injustice. We're the voice of liberty. We are the voice of the soldier, marching off to war. We are the strength of a generation, longing to find more. We are the voice of the children, longing to rejoice when you don't know who to trust. We are the voice. Can't you hear the sound?
Thank you. This concludes our ceremony.